and then start. Welcome all of you to the Values for Life series, episode 86 on efficiency. So, a big thanks to Sister Denise. Thank you so much for being a part of the series, and thank you for joining again after a few months. Please. Yes. So, before we go on to the topic, I would just want to say that efficiency is a word which is not really considered as a virtue, but it is more commonly used in the context of industries where efficiency and productivity go hand in hand. So we chose this topic because we're actually falling short of values now. It's 85 episodes already. I'm just being very honest here when I say that. So I think Sister Denise will do an excellent job. She will tell us her aspect related to spirituality as well, how efficiency can be translated into that arena of our life. And Sister Denise actually doesn't need any introduction, but we always have new participants. So she has been into Brahma Kumaris since 1974. It's a whopping 50 years journey now. And she has been instrumental in sort of coordinating and establishing, I must say, centers in various parts of the world, starting with Germany, Canada, USA. And she was instrumental for featuring on 100 television programs on the Raj Yoga TV and a further 100 on addiction recovery. And she is a very ardent student of Dadi Janki, one of those few foreigners, the double foreigners, as we say at Brahma Kumaris, who came into knowledge right in London. And as we speak now, she serves in a very remote area of France. And Sister Denise also knows Hindi quite well. And she spent a lot of time at our Brahma Kumaris main centers, the international headquarters in Mount Abu, where she's written a lot of textbooks of the diploma programs in value education and spirituality. She also had served as the national coordinator for Brahma Kumaris in Canada for 3 years, from 2007 to 10. And as always, before I ask Sister Claudia to formally welcome her with flowers, a poem in your memorial as always. So being a very senior Raj Yogi, Sister Denise is indeed very efficient. That's because whatever action she performs is indeed very proficient. She's filled with all the virtues, with no scope of anything being deficient. She's determined with herself and never is ever lenient. She says, for success in life, determination is the coefficient whereby we can be servers for the world who are indeed beneficent. Though greed and attachment indeed are so very omniscient, present all over, let's be satisfied and contented because we have sufficient. Finally, let's perform actions which are indeed very conscient so that we can win the award of being spiritually decent. So with this, actually we covered decency as a value before this. I just remembered that. So thank you so much once again for being here. And I would now request Sister Claudia to please officially welcome you. Thanks.
Good morning. It's so nice to have you with us. It's an honor. And actually, adding to what Manoj Bhai was saying, you start the Raj Yoga in Canada too, especially in Vancouver, when you plant the seed with Sister Chandru. And this year we are celebrating 50 years of the service in Canada. So then of course your name come in our mind when we think about this 50 years. So, and by being so efficient, I think we are going to learn a lot from you today. and I know you quite well, how efficient you are in everything you do. So thank you for coming to be with us today, and most welcome, most welcome.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Well, it's really my honor to be here with you. And yeah, 50 years goes by in a flash, doesn't it?
So, Om Shanti from each of us here. We are welcoming you with this beautiful bouquet of flowers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
So thank you so much. So before we go on to the talk, a few housekeeping instructions as always. Please click on the interpretation icon in the bottom panel to select the language you want to listen into. And as always, the talk would be for an hour, almost 55 minutes to an hour. And then you can start pouring your questions onto me in the chat box. And we'll ask Sister Denise then. So it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manoj. Well, efficiency. So, I was thinking that efficiency is talked about in physics in terms of machines, physics and technology, that a machine is efficient if you get as much energy out of it as you put into it, but very few machines are more than 50-60% efficient. So looking at efficiency in terms of machines. And in spirituality, we have something called the machinery of the drama, which I will talk about a little bit. And we also have the machinery of karma. So not many people think about karma as a machine, but it is. And looking at it as efficient, 100% efficient, probably it's 100% efficient. And that's a very intriguing kind of approach to efficiency. And then you see we are actors in the great, enormous drama of the human race, which has been going on for a long time, and which is about to enter into a state of reset, you see. So reset is also very much interesting part of efficiency, because anytime you have a machine, it is operating in the context of time and space, and where anything which is operating in the context of time is subject to deterioration. So you have the machinery of the history of the human race in a state of deterioration from the angle of spiritual knowledge. From the angle of science, there is this concept of progress and development. So things should be becoming more and more efficient from that angle. But from the point of view of the spiritual knowledge, which talks about the drama as something that is subject to time and consequently efficient, consequently deteriorating, we have to look at some interesting concepts, which is the gunas. And this is something that doesn't exist outside India, as far as I can tell. So the gunas are, everything starts off pure, subtle pradhan, and then it gradually reduces in quality, becomes rajasic, and then it reduces further in quality and becomes tamasic. So, for example, a human being, when you get born, you are a baby, so that's pure, subtle pradhan, and you grow and you reach your peak, maybe, of activity and influencing in the world. Maybe we'll call that rajasic. And then after you hit a certain moment, then you start to go into decline. And at the end of your life, that will be called Tamo Pradhan. And then you died. And then there is a divergence between the scientific view of life and the spiritual view of life. So the scientific view of life says that once you're dead, you're dead. And then a new one comes along. And the spiritual view of life says there's continuity, a continuity over this huge, long time cycle in which the soul is reincarnating over time, sometimes in a male form, sometimes in a female form. And overall, there is a decline. But this machine of the time cycle is very efficient, because when it reaches its absolutely its oldest moment, then it gets restored and is returned to its original condition. So this is a very, very, I think, interesting angle on efficiency that I'm thinking about. Because, you know, one of the things that people are most concerned about, according to scientific research, what people desire more than anything else, what they're most worried about is immortality. And if you are just dead when you're dead, then immortality is a problem, because you cannot, you don't have any kind of data by which to think of yourself as immortal. But in spirituality, you do. So it's quite important, I think, in order to be really fully efficient, to operate with science and spirituality in combination. I think that's more efficient. There's another idea about efficiency is connected with, it has to be internally logical. And this continuity of the spiritual angle on existence, which says that essentially you are pure, perfect, ideal. You are the essence of purity, peace, power, love, bliss. This is the quality of your soul as you arrive on the earth. And then from there, you come into action through the physical body in the context of time and space, and the energy of your soul and the energy of matter in that context of time will deteriorate until it reaches a nadir. So you have a zenith, which is the highest point, and the nadir, which is the lowest point. And in this machine, once you reach the lowest point, then there is something called a deus ex machina, which means God who is outside the machine. It's a Latin expression quite frequently used in the Western world to refer to an energy from outside the system which comes along and restores the system to its optimal condition. And from spiritual point of view, the energy that brings the soul and that brings matter to its optimal condition is the energy which we call yoga. We can also call this the energy of the Supreme Being. It's an energy that doesn't get depleted. So that makes it a very amazing, efficient machine, which is also called perpetual motion. Now, scientists and alchemists and people who inquire and seekers after truth. This is one of the things that they're looking for, perpetual motion. And nobody could find it. But from the angle of spirituality, I think we can say that it has been given to us, because when you just look at the machinery of human life on the earth, it deteriorates, which means sooner or later it has to fizzle out altogether. But it doesn't, because of this energy which comes from outside the machine. Every time the machine reaches its lowest point and brings it very rapidly to its highest point, and this is endless. So that, to me, is the most efficient thing there is, which is the secret of perpetual motion. So now we have to see, now how do we define this? How do we describe this to the satisfaction both of people who are looking at it from a spiritual angle or a religious angle, and those who are looking at it from a philosophical or scientific angle? And I think it is possible to satisfy both angles of approach. And I don't think that within the time that we have, we can go into all the details to be able to prove it. So I just basically wanted to introduce this machine of the world time cycle, which gets renovated every cycle. When it reaches its end, brings it back to the beginning. I also wanted to look at another machine which we learn about in spiritual study, and that is the machinery of karma. Now, karma is now an internationally recognized word. It is, of course, a word from Hindi, from Sanskrit, which simply means action, but there are many, many laws of action, and action operates at the level of thought, the spoken word, the written word, any kind of physical action, any act by anyone, that is karma. And it's why is it called a machinery? And this is because every time an action is performed, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So this action and reaction is also in the context of deterioration through the vectors of time and space. So you have an action with its equal and opposite reaction. You have a continuing decline. You have positive karma, negative karma, neutral karma. So you have a lot of elements that must be calculated in the equation. So the philosophy of karma is very, very complicated. Nevertheless, it is classified as a machine, just as the process of the cycle of time and space is also called a machine. In the material that we study in spiritual knowledge. Now, the machinery of karma is very interesting when you get to the end of the cycle and the beginning of the next cycle. And so karma is something that is really concerned with human beings because unlike animals, human beings have choices and motivations that are different. For example, animals do not engage in anything like philosophy or religion. Animals, birds, insects, fishes, everything operates according to the laws of nature. But human beings, though they are physically mammals, but spiritually something else, and human beings have responsibility in the sense that animals, birds, insects, reptiles do not have. So in that same sense, we cannot really classify human beings as animals. That applies only in terms of humans are mammals from the point of view of reproduction, from the point of view of the biological configuration. But in terms of the intelligence, is different. So the laws of karma apply to humans. They may apply a little bit to animals, but not anywhere near the extent to which they apply to humans. And so we need to consider our own efficiency as an individual who is engaged in spiritual practice and see, bearing in mind the extent to which we know about philosophy of karma, the extent to which we know about the time cycle and the process of a soul in the journey through time and space, through the different ages, through the different civilizations. And then you get to this very wonderful, extraordinary period of time between the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, which is where the machinery of karma is operating to a point of resetting itself all the way to zero. And so sometimes karma is likened to a bank balance. You do some pure karma that's positive, you do some negative karma, you go into debt, you have to pay your debts, you have to accumulate some karmic benefit through doing good to others, and different kinds of pure karma that are beyond doing good to others. So we learn about all this in this period of time, which is a convergence or confluence between one cycle and another cycle. And there it is in the context of something called the time of reckoning. So the time of reckoning is where the machinery of karma plays out very rapidly in order to bring everyone's karmic accounts back to zero. So the idea is that when one cycle finishes, everything goes back to zero, so that when the next cycle begins, everything is at zero, a zero in the sense of zero debt, but it's also a time when there is highest amount of spiritual energy, highest amount of karmic credit, because the idea is that your spiritual energy and your karmic credit has to last you for the whole next cycle. And you can go up and down a little bit, but overall, in the beginning of a new cycle, you're at maximum. So at the end of the cycle, from the machinery of karma point of view, on one hand, you have to settle all your outstanding karmic debts. So you have to figure out what they are. And secondly, you have to accumulate so much positive karma that it will bring you good fortune in many aspects of existence and experience that will last you a whole cycle of time, which is many thousands of years. So here we are, souls in the human body, considering this type of information that looks at this huge landscape of the human story in terms of time, space, action, in terms of profit and loss, in terms of who are you as a character in the drama. Are you influential Are you influenced? What is all of this in this larger landscape context? Because if you are very efficient with your application of your understanding, your knowledge, then you can win. That means you can finish off all your karmic accounts. You will not create any new ones, and you will also do such karma to bring you to a very, very high position, a very high state for the coming cycle. And so I think to talk about personal efficiency in that context might be quite interesting. So I thought maybe we can look at that. So here we are, look at yourself personally, individual. There you are in the context of a single day. And one day has been considered as a microcosm of your whole life. So what you do in one day is like a little version of what you do in your whole life. And everyone is different. So it is said in terms of spiritual practice, your day is 24 hours and you have to work out what you're going to do when and with whom and for how long. And there are some aspects in which you are completely in charge of everything that happens in your day, but there are other things that happen that you can't do anything about. Circumstances are there. And so there you're graded and your efficiency is determined by how you handle the circumstances that impose themselves on you in a single day. So from the point of view of discipline, discipline is quite interesting in connection with efficiency. Because it is generally thought that if a person is disciplined, they're likely to be efficient as well, because they don't waste energy, they don't waste time. And loss of energy, where energy goes to waste, is considered inefficient. So we can look at it, first of all, from the angle of thought. And every human being is thinking all the time. Sometimes you're very conscious of what you're thinking. Sometimes your mind is just wandering about, but there are still thoughts going on. Sometimes you're daydreaming. Sometimes you're meditating. Sometimes you're concentrated on your work. Sometimes you're worrying. Sometimes you're dealing with problems. Sometimes there's some shock, some horror, some disappointment, betrayal. So throughout the day, in terms of our thinking, in terms of our mind, there's a whole spectrum of different feelings that are going on and different things that we set our mind to in terms of thinking. And so in terms of the efficiency of the mind, it is said that, first of all, you need energy in order to use your consciousness best, adequately, effectively, accurately. And so therefore, the beginning of the day is best to consecrate to meditation. And so if you're in the spiritual practice of Raj Yoga, then generally speaking, you will give yourself 45 minutes, an hour or more in the early morning to sit and meditate. And sit and meditate doesn't mean just meditate on anything. It means establish yourself in soul consciousness and take power from the Supreme Being, because that's the energy you need for the day. and you need to take more energy than you use, otherwise it's inefficient. And so a person who disciplines themselves to take more energy than they use, that's a smart person, because you need a lot of energy, especially when unexpected circumstances come along and give you a hard time or require such a lot of energy from you to manage them. So you need a good amount of energy. And this energy that you get from meditation is also called very, very high quality pure karma. So when you're doing your calculation of accumulation of pure karma, one thing is to do things of benefit for others, different kinds of service, but the most important input into your soul is the input of that energy from meditation. And the early morning meditation is the best quality input. So an efficient Raj Yogi will give a lot of attention to that. And then you also need to fill your mind with worthwhile ideas, concepts, thoughts for the day. And so for that, it's very important to expose yourself to the spiritual study. And so that is your second priority. And then after that, then you have your day. And what will you do in your day? There has to be self-care. And there has to be an understanding of what your various duties are and fulfilling those. You may have duties in your family, duties in your work, duties in your community. These duties are obligations, and if we fulfill them well, it gives us karmic credit. If we neglect them, or we don't fulfill them well, or we get into any kind of disputes or refusal to fulfill our duty, or we don't agree that this is our duty, then we go into karmic debt. And when we go into karmic debt, there's an effect on our thought. So with meditation and spiritual input, you have a very good foundation for the day to maintain a day with pure thoughts, and how you handle circumstances, relationships, interactions with pure thought. Then you come through to the end of the day with a plus grade, and you have maintained pure thought throughout the day. That's really, really good, because then you are strong, very pure. And if your life is like that, then you're really seriously making yourself properly ready for the new cycle. However, there are many obstacles, and we have our own character defects. Other people have character defects. One of the things that people don't give much importance to, but in spiritual study we are alerted to this, and that is that when people do negative things to you and you allow it to go in, then that constitutes negative karma, not only on their part, but also on your part. And this is because you feel bad, you react, you get upset, you don't agree with it, you start obsessively thinking about it, worrying about it. And in the process, you really drain yourself of spiritual energy. So a very powerful discipline is that when something like that happens, to immediately stop the thoughts about it. because any thoughts about it will drain your energy. So you have to stop those. And then another thing to do is called the power of transformation. This is a very, very helpful power when you want to be really efficient in terms of sustaining pure thought. And this is to do with interpretation. So when you experience something negative and you take it as negative and you take it in as something negative, then it will drain your energy. But if it is something negative, you know it's something negative, but you look at it from another angle and you find a way where it is advantageous to you. So it's negative only from one angle, from the angle of its appearance, from the angle of the intention. But if you use the power of transformation, first you recognize how you can take advantage from this negative thing. And then you take it in as something positive. Then it will operate within your spirit as a positive energy. It will not drain your spiritual energy, but rather because you have used your power effectively and efficiently, you are moving forward instead of being held up or held back. So this is a very, very good way to manage negativity. And it's negative if you think it's negative. But if you transform it and you know, yes, it was intended to be negative, but you made it into something positive. And there's a very nice analogy that has been made about this. That is, if you want to grow really good roses in your garden, well, you have to put manure in the roots. And so manure is something mostly, it's like animals' droppings, horses' droppings are very good for this. And see how the rose draws into itself this very refuse from the animal and turns it into the fragrance of the rose. And this is a really good analogy for the power of transformation. And the, there are many metaphors and symbols that you find in the study and practice of spirituality. And the rose is a very frequently used one, the rose or the lotus. The lotus is another similar one because the lotus is the symbol of detachment. And so you are a lotus, which means you grow in stagnant water. You are connected with a very complicated root system with all sorts of other lotuses. But anyone who sees the lotus pond just sees the lotus standing up from the water in the pond, and you're alone, you're beautiful, and nobody knows that your beauty is sustained by all of this muck under the water. And so this is also an example of efficiency, in a sense, that it's very efficient to not discard the muck, but to use it, to upcycle it, you can say. And it is natural in the power of nature. Nature always is recycling everything. Everything eventually decays and dies, and then that becomes the nurturing energy for what is coming up. And so you do that for yourself constantly, using the so-called bad stuff to renew yourself and strengthen yourself. And in this way of interpreting so-called negative things as to your advantage, this is a very, very efficient way of processing circumstances. Because a yogi is defined as someone who is skilled in action. And action takes place in context of relationships, in context of circumstances. And you have to all the time interpret and make choices of what you think is happening and what you're going to do with it or what you're going to do about it. Tendency is to react against things that are perceived as negative. So it is said in spiritual study that you need to have a state of equanimity in the face of the pairs of opposites. And this is also an attribute of efficiency. If you aren't equanimous between these pairs of opposites, it's very, very inefficient. You lose a lot of energy. You have to go back to square one, start accumulating again. And sometimes you just, if you don't do it efficiently and effectively, you can just give up. And if you give up, then you don't attain what you could attain. So the pairs of opposites, one of them is fame and defamation. So when everybody thinks you're wonderful, marvelous, and fantastic, you like it. And you take that in as a positive experience. But there is a spiritual law which says, okay, if you take in the positive, then time is such, circumstances are such that the opposite will happen after a little while. And you will be defamed, rejected, bad-mouthed, all of these bad things will happen. And you will have to take that because you took the positive. This is a law. And so to be efficient means to study such that you know the laws. So when something comes along, which is really very positive and marvelous, do not use that as a support to make you feel happy, because you will have to eat humble pie, you will have to experience the opposite of it, because it will surely come. So the efficient person is the one who neither takes in all of this positive feedback, and nor will you have to take in the negative feedback. So what do is you say, okay, who is my judge? One thing is you're your own judge, but secondly, you put yourself in front of the Supreme Justice, the Supreme Soul. This is my judge. And so if the Supreme Being says you are a very good soul, that's good. You're a good student, you're loved, good. But not more than that, you see. You don't get puffed up by the judgments that come from that source. You get puffed up by the when the human society thinks that you're the best, and then after a little while they think that you're the worst. So not to rely on public opinion, because it goes one side and the other side and the other side, and like this. Do not go in that swing. And so if you are attentive on your karma, you do everything according to your understanding. And if the world doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means they don't like it. And so you do good because you've understood what is right. And you do that, you maintain your principles, your integrity, and you do not take compliments. You also do not take defamation. This is efficient because then you don't put yourself in a position where you start losing all your spiritual energy because of having taken the negative feedback. There is another pair of opposites called success and failure. So you have to decide what you think success is. So for many people, success is you achieve what you set out to achieve materially. You may make a lot of money, you may become famous, you may be a big influencer. All these things are regular worldly idea of success. But in spiritual terms, you may have different criteria. You may say, well, to me, success is to remain balanced. To me, success is to have a day with absolutely no waste or negative thought. Success. Success is to maintain a stable stage of connectedness in yoga with the Supreme Being. Success. These are very invisible kinds of success. They're not seen by other people. It's really between you and yourself. It's between you and the Supreme Being. And that you have good relationships with others where you're not in debt to people. No one's in debt to you. It's cordial, it's professional. You do not lean on anyone and you do not let anyone lean on you. So you are a free person. This is success. And you become free from the ups and downs of success and failure in worldly terms, you see. So these enable you to be efficient, because efficiency means you really understand the game. You understand what the priorities are. You understand who you are. And you understand the drama that's going on, and you play your moves skillfully in order to remain in this state of equilibrium, state of tranquility, and you keep yourself free. It has been said it's quite easy to get free, but it's not easy to stay free. So you need to be able to get free and stay free, be easy with everyone, be absolutely fine to be alone, be fine in the midst of everyone, be fine when things are going badly, be easy when things are going well. This balanced state is the way to finish off the old and prepare yourself for the new. So I think that maybe I will stop there. I just touched on the machinery of the big drama, which is very big. Machinery of karma and the state of equilibrium. Because when something is balanced, it stays efficient as a machine. So I didn't really take up anything like you would normally hear about as an efficient corporate person or efficient in getting your work done. But I wanted us to look at another aspect of efficiency. So thank you very much. Om Shanti.
So thank you so much. Wonderful indeed, because you touched upon those three aspects, which I think people should be knowing, because if we have participants here who are very spiritually inclined, so they should be understanding that efficiency on a very deeper level, as you mentioned about the drama, the time cycle, and the karma being very efficient. I mean, how efficiently it goes on, this cycle of the world, whether it's time, karma, or drama. So there are actually quite a few questions related to this karma, because you have opened a big Pandora's box. So let's cover those questions. And I think we have all the time in the world to cover that, because we have a lot of time. So I think I'll take this, the first question. One of the doctors is asking that he sees a lot of patients, and he's a very famous doctor and very successful indeed, he's saying. So he's earned a lot of materialistic wealth. He's very satisfied with that. But he's just thinking that since you spoke about karmic accounts, so since so many patients have given him so much of money as his fee, he's a surgeon probably, because surgeons earn more money with one patient rather than physicians. So he's saying that, do I really have so many karmic accounts with all these people? I mean, all these patients whom I have charged for my consultation fees? Is it because I have karmic accounts with so many people? And I think this applies to even advocates, lawyers, or all professionals who are in such professions where they have to interact with people a lot. So karmic accounts.
When you offer a very high quality service, that has a certain value, and that value is agreed upon by your client. You see, you say, I have this speciality, and I am able to open up your brain and take out a tumor and close it up again without you dying, or I can open up your chest and put a new heart in. You know, this is very, very highly skilled, so it comes with a high price. This is not a karmic account. This is that a person has made themselves very skilled, and in terms of business, they understand the value of their skill, and their client does also. So this is an agreed upon thing, not a karmic account. If, on the other hand, it's something different. I tell you, there was a person whose name I can't remember, but there was a documentary about him, and he was a surgeon, and he had created plastic trachea, and he had become very famous because he was able to convince everyone in the medical industry that his trachea prosthesis was good, except that it wasn't. And every single patient died in the most horrific circumstances. And eventually he was called to account. That's putting himself into severe karmic account, because this is a crime. And so that's the difference. And people who, you know, it's very easy to deceive people. And if you deceive people and you get money from them through deceptive practices, then you go into karmic debt, and you will have to pay sooner or later. This particular man was imprisoned and forfeited all his money, and because eventually you get caught out. Now, there are some people, they can act improperly and succeed in it, get away with it in their whole life, but then their next life, they will be born in a very, very terrible situation, which is the automatic consequence. This is a machinery of karma. So even if another human being doesn't catch you out, but you cannot deceive spiritual laws, because they are inexorable. They cannot be changed. Human laws, you can get around it. There are many people who do, but it doesn't change the fact that they go into karmic debt. So I would say that the doctors and lawyers who make themselves very skilled, and they they're doing very good karma. Many of them will also do pro bono work because they feel I have a huge amount of money I can afford to do medical services or legal services for people who are not able to afford my service. And this is called charity. This is punya. And so there they will go into a lot of benefit. And you can also understand that if you are a doctor or a lawyer who's very, very successful, makes a lot of money, it's an indication that they might well have still had those skills in a former life and had benefited many people without profiting from them. And that this would be the karmic consequence, that they have easy ability to have a very, very good life, very good relationships, very good skills, you see.
Thank you. So it was an eye-opener. So it's not a karmic account. But the question here is that if there's a patient who's doing doctor shopping, who's coming to me and going to 10 other people as well, but then is getting operated by some XYZ doctor. So is that he's got a karmic account with that doctor, therefore?
I think no. I think that in any business, you want to like if you want to buy a house, right? You will see a number of different houses because they may all look nice, but they may have something wrong, but the plumbing may be wrong, or the beams may be ready to break, or the roof is no good, hidden problems, or the town where you buy it in is not to your liking. So you have to shop around. That is normal. And with medical doctors, in the world that we live in at the moment, it's very common to get a second opinion, maybe a third opinion. You may go for a test and be told you have cancer and you're going to die in 6 weeks, and you say, ooh, maybe I should check further. And that's very reasonable, very logical. But of course, as you say, someone can take it to an extreme, and then it becomes they are abusing the medical profession, you see. So there's a line where you have a right, and if you cross that line, then it becomes an abuse of your power to do that, you see. So there's quite subtle distinctions.
Right. So coming to the next question, again on karmic accounts, it's at home. Again, we are in relationships with people. I mean, the challenging relationships, particularly in India, is a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law. So this sister is asking that, how do I know that if there's anything going on between my mother-in-law, am I settling my karmic account or am I creating a new one? How do I know?
Okay, you may be in a circumstance because I don't know if you've ever read the Manusmriti. Have you read that? No, most people haven't. I read it. I thought I need to understand this, what's going on here, because I interact with India a lot, but I come from the European background. And the Manusmriti is mentioned quite a lot. And so if you look at that, you will find that it's a very biased document, biased very much against the daughter-in-law, against women in general. And it presumes that because it puts the female at the mercy of a male. So if a male is very nice, then that's good. But if not, then that's not so good. So the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law setup is, according to that system, it's very easy for the mother-in-law to abuse her power. And in many cases, the daughter-in-law will be conditioned to allow that. And so that combination becomes quite a bad karmic account. And this is where I think social education is helpful. And there are also laws. I don't know if you've read the Indian Constitution, probably not. It's got a large number of articles, but I did. And it's complicated. But if you put a comparison between the Indian Constitution and the Manusmriti, which is a big piece of study right there, but it's interesting because the Manusmriti is quite biased, and the Indian Constitution, which is based on the French and the American constitutions of the 18th century, is much more inclined to give the females their rights. And the problem is that you have a society where tradition is biased and rights are egalitarian. So you have to negotiate. And you have to be quite smart. You have to be quite confident of who you are. In a way, it's difficult for the young girl because very often the girl is very young, and she will get married as an arranged marriage, which is a business deal between families, in which the girl is collateral, and so she is actually being used, and then she has to manage that. And in the Mahabharata, this was really Draupadi's situation, and she, if you see how Draupadi handled herself in the Mahabharata, and you compare that with how Sita handled herself in the Ramayana, you see these two possible ways of doing things. And in the Ramayana, mostly the problems are because of public opinion. And in the Mahabharata, the problems are resolved because of having access to and applying something like what we can call the laws of spirituality. And if you can be strong in yourself, if you can understand your value, understand the laws of spirituality and karma, and understand how to manage the different personalities with their various different biases and so on, then you can come out of it in one piece. But that's a rare person who can do that. And I don't think it's really to do with karmic accounts only, but it's to do with the social laws, the legal laws, the complications of a feudal society in a democratic republic. This is complicated, and you have to be very smart to manage it. And some people are very good at it, and some people are not. Your ability to be very good at it, I would say, is a product of your karma in previous lives, which predisposed you to be skilled in that area. And on the contrary, if you're really useless in that area, you come in with that, then you need to do a lot of learning to overcome that. And this could be a karmic weakness that you come in with, and that you may be also having some karmic debts to the person who's playing the role of your mother-in-law. But it is complicated. It's not so black and white as people assume. So you have to really think deep and understand yourself well, understand the situations, and create a very powerful connection between yourself and the divine, so that you get help, not from the world, but spiritual help. And that is, in my experience, the way to handle it all.
Yeah, true. Another question related to the same question, which was about how would you reconcile a karma where a client does not pay for the services given by a professional?
Well, you get that quite a lot. And so then you have to do the process of getting it. But if you're a yogi, you will have an intuition about whether you owe something to someone karmically, and then you would just let it go because they refuse to pay. You go inside, you see, okay, let it go. Or you see that someone owes you something, and you kind of know that if they owe it to you karmically, something will happen. They will pay. They will want to, you see. There are very deep subtleties in this as well. And again, it's quite difficult to put your finger on which one it is when you give a general example, you know. But in my experience, if somebody's owed me something, they will just start giving me lots and lots of things. And if I owe something to someone, it'll be like natural to give to them until a certain point comes where you know the debt is clear, and then you part ways usually. So I think you have to be very intuitive about it.
Right. As I told you, it's a lot of karmic questions. Let's go to one more. It's a very sensitive topic, I think, in the US with a lot of abortion laws going on. So the question is, what about abortions? Should it be recommended?
Well, you know, in the USA, the abortion laws are in the context of Christian doctrine. And Christian doctrine says that as soon as a person is conceived, they've got a soul and they only have one life. And so you're not allowed to kill that person because that's murder, and murder is a crime. So that's why they have that. Then you have other circumstances where, for example, a young girl is raped, she's impregnated, the guy is not good, and if you don't have an abortion, you put that girl in a very bad situation for the rest of her life. Already she's in a bad situation because of being raped. And in India, the circumstances are different. In India, it's very common for there to be feticide and female feticide and female infanticide because the culture wants boys. And so you get that. In previous times, you know, the little baby who is drowned in milk, and they call it Dud Samadhi. I don't know if you've come across that, but I have. And so then she can reincarnate and try again. But at the same time, it's complicated, you know, because you have this situation of a girl who is a piece of property owned by the family she marries into. And again, going back to the mother-in-law will say, you do not have a right to give birth to a girl. You have to give birth to a boy. So if you give birth to a girl, we'll be nasty to you. And that might include a forced abortion. So that happens, but it doesn't come out. It stays secretly in the family. And this is the custom, you see. And in America, if you have an abortion, then you're dealing with what's called as the religious right. And at the moment, mostly politically, all the countries are going further and further to the right, which means it's more racist, it's more anti-abortion, it's very punitive, and so you have that going on at this time. And it's quite difficult because there are many laws which are not moral, and many things that are moral but not legal. And then, you can't really put yourself to say, well, I don't agree with the law, because they will jail you anyway, whether you agree or not. And so I think what Baba recommends is, it's good if you follow the laws of the land, and you may get yourself into a situation, deal with it discreetly, if possible, because the foundation on which the question of abortion is considered in USA, for example, at the moment, is political, and people are not much concerned about the state of the person. They're concerned about whether they're seen to be right, or they can prove that they're right, but they have to stand in front of God eventually, and he will decide whether what they did was right or wrong, and that will be between them and God. So it's difficult to answer in terms of karma, because you're dealing with customs and politics, which are very, very strong. And Baba hasn't said much about these things.
Yeah, so as you rightly said, in India, we have the act it's called MTP, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, MTP. So we say whether it's an abortion, which they come for whatever feticide and female infanticide, all those things, as you said, not infanticide, feticide. So that's according to the act. And if it is a spontaneous abortion, which happens, then we call it abortion. Well, we'll come out from abortions now and move further. We have just a few more minutes left. Yeah, you spoke about science and spirituality. The next question caters to that many spiritual people are scientific, but the converse, that the scientific-minded community, particularly in the West, the Western researchers, I also would agree that when I go for conferences abroad, particularly towards the West, it's very difficult to get down, ask them to come down to something spiritual. They don't believe in spirituality. So how do we do that this scientific community also understands the importance of spirituality? What do we do?
Well, there are a lot of people in Christian background who believe in reincarnation, even though it's not part of the religion. There are a lot of people who just are spiritual, and there are a lot of people who are utterly materialistic. And I think that the wise way is to enable yourself to be open in case you encounter somebody who wants to know. But no point trying to convince somebody who's already convinced of their own particular approach. But circumstances change. And when circumstances change, then you remain open, and people can know that they can always come to you for further information. I think it's good to leave it like that, not impose on anyone.
Right, so good one. And there's another question related to the time cycle. You mentioned about the law of entropy, though you didn't mention, but you explained the entire process. And you also mentioned that there's an energy, the Supreme Being coming. And at Brahma Kumaris in the Raj Yoga meditation, the Supreme Being teaches us that I sort of incarnate only in the land of India, Bharat, rather we should say Bharat. So someone is asking, why is your God, saying your God, why is your God so partial towards India? Why not incarnate in any other part of the world? Why India?
I think it's because there's a circular logic involved. You see, the people who are calling God are in India mostly, and the history of India is that there was this extraordinary civilization which had been destroyed, which is remembered in many other places. So to establish it once again, because it is a repeating cycle, it has to be established in the place where it is. And pretty much all of the religions emerged out of India in the first place. And there was a small India, and after some time, it was a much larger area, much larger than India is now. And you can see in many countries, there is the old religion of India is very predominant there. And in many of the pre-Columbian societies. And so I think God will not say I'm these people's God and not those people's God. I'm everybody's God. I'm the Father of all souls. And I do establish heaven is quite a small place because you don't have very many people in it. And if it would be all over the world, people would be too far isolated from each other. So it has to be somewhere. Just as he himself says, I'm not everywhere, I'm somewhere. And you remember me where I am and who I am and what I am. And I am the creator, and this is the creation, and it's a big complex drama, and this is the story. And if you want the story to be something else, that's up to you, but you can't make it what you want it to be. You can come to understand what it is if you want.
Right. In the interest of time, I'll just take this last question. It says, you spoke about the power of transformation to convert something which is, as you gave rose and lotus, beautiful examples.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the power of realization is coming into play. The person is saying that I feel my conscience is dead because I don't realize that what I'm doing, like abortion, for example, I feel my conscience is not working very fine. So how do I have this power to realize? How should I develop my conscience, my inner conscience? Will meditation help?
No, what you need to do, of course, meditation will help definitely, but what you need to do is listen to the voice of conscience, because as often as you deny it or override it, that much it will stop talking to you. It doesn't die, but it definitely stops talking to you if you go against it enough. I mean, a normal person on a normal day goes against their conscience pretty often, but, you know, it still works a little bit. But if you want to listen to the voice of conscience regularly and attentively, then it will really be an excellent guide. And so the way to restore it is to listen and act accordingly. Don't go against it.
So wonderful. Thank you for answering all the questions. And now I'll request Sister Claudia to please go ahead with the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sister.
Sister Denise, like always, I quite like your class. They're so profound. And it was nice to see you talk about karma. Karma is a subject. When I came to spirituality around 30 years ago, that I figured out that this is my life. Depends on the karma. And I have been studying for so long, but still there is always something to learn from this law of karma. And I quite like when you said, like, I always think about and I always pay attention that I don't have debt with anyone and no one has debt with me, and I have to clear my debts that I have. Sometimes we don't even know we have debts with that one. So, and that's like you said, that life is a microscope of, this one day is a microscope of my life. So this is very deep, and we really have to see and realize, like you said, realize if we don't stop to check and realize about our debts and what we are putting in our karmic accounts. So next life is going to be this life, not only next life, but this life too. It's going to be an easy life. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you talking about this subject today. Thank you for, I am sure that everybody enjoyed to listen to your class again and then pay attention to all the points that you talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my honor. Thank you very much.
So thank you both of you. And before we move on to the closing meditation, so over to Sister Anu for the announcements, the photograph as well.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, definitely, as Sister Claudia mentioned, it's very deeper aspects of karma we listened today. We must really think deeply. And I loved it how you connected efficiency with that following spiritual truth law. Thank you so much, Sister Denise. And quickly for the announcements. So as we always do, our workshop on efficiency will be after 1 week, where we'll have the first hour experiential exercises. So to deeply look at efficiency and imbibe it in our life. And then in the second hour, we'll have Sister Marilyn from Boston, USA. She will be joining our program first time. She will again take us through an insightful talk further and meditation on efficiency. So it's on 23rd of March, 7 a.m. for West Coast, US, Canada. That is 7:30 p.m. India. So the time has changed after daylight savings time change. So please note it would be always 7 a.m. now every week. And our next session on Values for Life series is episode 87 on inspiration, prerana. And for that, we'll have our very favorite duo brothers, Raj Yogi brothers, Brother Eric Levreste from Canada, who is the national coordinator of Brahma Kumaris in Canada, and Brother Eric Larson from New York, USA, who is the director of Brahma Kumaris in USA. And the name has just C and K changed, as you can see. And whoever have attended, it's a wonderful conversation that they do. So they will take us through a conversation on inspiration on 8th of July, Saturday, 7 a.m. West Coast, US, Canada, 7:30 p.m. India time. So please mark your calendars and you can check us out on our websites, vihasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. All the videos in different languages also you'll find on the YouTube channels of Vihasa India and Brahma Kumaris Vancouver. We have playlists as well, as you can see on the screen. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Anuj.
Yeah, so we always have a small request from the participants. If you all can just open your video cameras before we go into because we'll exit in silence. So we do all this job before we go into meditation. Yeah, so Sister Anu, you can just quickly grab a snapshot. I hope many more people want to open still.
Yeah, people open a bit late. 2 seconds still if you like to be in the photo with Sister Denise. I got it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So over to Sister Denise for the closing meditation.
Om Shanti. Take a moment to turn deep within and consider the self to be right in the center of this huge drama of time and space. In the complexity of all humanity and the complications of karma. When you're right in the middle, it is like being in the eye of the storm. still and quiet. Returning to that original thought, I am a soul at peace. I am at peace with what I understand, and I accept things that are chaotic and beyond understanding. It is what it is. So I am in the middle of all this, but I am with the Creator. I am with the light. I am with the ocean of wisdom. I don't waste thought or time. I allow everything to be what it is. In these closing chapters of one drama and the opening preparations of the next, I am still, I am light, I am love. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much once again for your words of wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.